The time has come for my people to go.
I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's what the people demand, and we gonna keep fighting till we get that land. I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's time to rise to get what we want, we got to organize.
Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Pantsula Podcast, brought to you by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. For those of those who don't know who we are or not familiar with the A-APRP, we were actually founded by Kwame Nkrumah in 1968, with our objective being Pan-Africanism. And we define Pan-Africanism as the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism, which was defined in the Fifth Pan-African Congress. And as you can see today, I'm here with my fellow comrades, Jesse and Winfred. And before we start every episode, we like to dedicate it to two of our ancestors. In this episode, one of them being Kenneth Kaunda, and then the other one being Queen Nanny of the Maroons. And today we will be discussing revolution and religion. So there's been a lot of discourse about, utilizing Abrahamic religions or just spirituality in general and revolution. So I thought this would be a great time for us to disseminate a lot of the disinformation or misinformation that's out there and talk about, how it could be useful. So I guess I'll start off and kick it off and say, what are some, concrete examples where we've seen religion and revolution work in, just historically?
I feel like when you look at Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, all of these brothers had in common, Queen Mother Moore, these were people who believed, that's one aspect to our revolution is we have that belief generally, the African masses. And it's definitely been shown to be an effective measure to organize us. The Nation of Islam is the NOI, is a great example as well. So we can't really disconnect from the historical realization that it has been used for revolution. Even someone like Nat Turner. It's not that, I think there's a lot of confusion because of the misinformation, the intentional misinformation delivered, and people are not reading, people are not joined in the work study process. So it's just very easy to just repeat whatever you hear. But just looking at our history, we can think of many of our leaders have been found in a faith, and they've used that faith for the benefit of the masses.
Exactly. And yeah, man, I think you brought up some great examples. And, other ones I think of are Samori Touré, which is the grandfather of Sekou Touré. I believe is either the great grandfather or the grandfather of Sekou Touré. But either way, he carried on tradition of his lineage in regards to Islam. They use that as a way, as a mechanism, especially Sekou Touré. I talk about him a lot in all of our episodes because I study a lot of his work. He made sure that, when Guinea and the PDG, the Democratic Party of Guinea, that these religions worked, in cohesion, because in Guinea, it was not only just people practicing Islam, there was also people practicing Christianity. And, he had to make sure that, not just him, obviously the party, I don't want to individualize it like, Sekou Touré, it was a mass party. Right. So at the end of the day, they needed to strategize on how do we make this work harmonious, even though, people were putting out information that it's an atheist group and all the other stuff, but in actuality, they knew they had to work in tangent together. So, they were able to do so to overthrow French colonialism. You have Denmark Vesey, you have the Haitian Revolution, where they use indigenous, voodoo as a way to liberate themselves. You have the likes of a David Walker as well who used it. So, there's a lot of discourse on Abrahamic religions and it being, what was the white man's religion? And when you really study and understand that these are all fragments of African spirituality, a lot of the time, all of these things came out of Africa. A lot of these concepts and principles came out of Africa, more so ancient Egypt, or other people like to call ancient Kemet. You know, it was even, I think I even have a quote here stated by one of the scholars, I think maybe even Cheikh Anta Diop. He said, most of the ideas that we call foreign are oftentimes nothing but mixed up, reversed, modified, elaborated images of the creations of our African ancestors, such as Judaism, Christianity, Islam, dialectics, the theory of being, the exact sciences, arithmetic, geometry, mechanical engineering, astronomy, medicine, and literature. And this was quoted in the Civilization of Barbarism. So that there, in a sense, you know, there's other scholars you could go through. You know, you look at like W.E.B. DuBois' works, and you know, and others. You know, Edward Blyden and so many others. You know, they come to the same conclusion and understanding of this. You know, there's so many other literature you could read, and we'll put them in the description, the suggestions and stuff like that. That you understand that, you know, even with these religions, you know, even though, you know, these other people or other forces, you know, Western Europeans more so, and, you know, some Arabs and stuff like that, you know, used it as a tool to distort the principles to justify the slave trade in a way, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean that that doesn't take away what the principles of these religions are. I think people conflate the two, you know, a lot of the times, just like to take on the distorted views that's been imposed on these religions and use that as a means to say, oh, that's what it means and that's what it is. This is the law. Yeah, we're not really understanding and reading. And I think I would even implore people to even read the Bible and Torah and the Quran, you know, as well, so you can really understand and get firm understanding. Secretary, even in one of our work study books, Woman in Society, he actually went on about how a lot of people, you know, perceive the whole notion of polygamy in the wrong context, and how Muhammad had multiple wives and all this other things. So he even frames it in the proper context and how it was done, you know. So that goes to show people could take anything and distort it and then try to say, oh yeah, this is the real version of it, you know, at the end of the day. So no, I went on a rant, so I'll go ahead and let, you know, Winfred, if you have anything to add.
So I guess something that I noticed is that's something that I've been learning about, is that there's been a distinction between religion in terms of the spirituality of it, and then religion in terms of the societal rules and expectations that's made of it. So like, I can be a Christian or a Muslim, and I have like a sense of spirituality and a deep sense of faith to like something that's greater than myself. And that's like something that's like common among a lot of people. And that's something that saved a lot of people, that's like protected them from violence, given them the chance to find community and just like be together with other people, and be better than they could have been prior to religion. Prior to having that spirituality and that faith. But there's also a politicized part of religion, which kind of dictates rules and regulations as to what people can and can't do. Some of them are like positive. So for example, like do not murder, where this is like something that you probably shouldn't be doing in your community. Another one is fasting. So like when you look at the research around fasting, like you'll find that it actually heals you. So your body reacts to like fasting and not having as much food in a positive way. Not for like, you shouldn't be fasting for the entire year, but like fasting in limited amounts, it helps. A lot of the Bible, especially the Old Testament, has a lot of hygienic principles and hygienic rules, which tells you this is how you should be making sure you're clean. So like even in the Old Testament of the Bible, they're like you should be washing, like for items that you import into the society, you should cleanse it with you should clean it with soap. And then the stuff that like can't be cleaned, you should destroy it. And that's clear. Like those are rules and regulations that help society. I might be going on a rant right now, but
No, keep going, keep going, man.
Keep going. This is what we need. We need this critical education. So
I guess what I'm saying is that like there's a spirituality with regards to really probably any faith, and there's also rules and regulations with regard to every religion, and just having those things exist aren't inherently bad. And so in terms of it being used as a political tool, religion, you can kind of make of it whatever you want it to be. So like I think the biggest thing isn't necessarily religion, but more so power. So the ability to dictate what the religion really says. So like, for example, like I guess at least prior to the Gutenberg press and like easy access to the Bible, the Roman Catholic Church was the only authority on what the religion said. So like they even had it to the point where you could be like reading the Bible was a punishable offense.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who died for just reading the Bible because like the Catholic Church were the people who killed them. So like because they had that power over life and death, then they could dictate what happens in the society and then use religion as a cover for it. But doesn't mean that religion in itself is inherently violent, because they could really be using, really, as long as they have power over like what you can physically do, like they can use really any cover. They can use like democracy, quote unquote, human rights, freedom,
anything,
liberty,
emblematic things,
whatever you want to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's a perfect example of that, of people utilizing it for their personal gain or to justify enslaving or killing people, which people can do. So, and you can see other people use it for other, in a proper way to advance humanity in a revolutionary manner, just like we stated all these other, revolutionaries and their organizations, how they've used it and utilized it to mobilize the people, to organize the people, to like once again advance humanity. Like, everyone, understands on a base, at least I do, on a basic level, like, you look at the Bibles, like Jesus, you can look at it in the framework of Jesus was a revolutionary. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he was trying to serve the disenfranchised and poor and working class people. I mean, that's what he did it for. So you can look at it in that way. And, we reading a lot of Marcus Garvey, and, the things he's saying in there is our relation into, a lot of things he's saying. I won't say every single thing, but a lot of things in relation to, into Christianity and God and, uplifting the race, utilizing the merging of two in a sense. This is someone who organized, 6 million Africans. I mean, people debate on a number, but it's millions. This is the end of the day, it's millions of Africans. I don't know. I don't think you could think back to another organization in the past like 60 years, 70 years, however long. Have organized that many. Yeah. And obviously, every single one and every single person in that organization wasn't Christian, right? You probably have people who believe in Judaism and other things. So which kind of leads into my second question is, in the struggle for liberation, like why is it important that, in that struggle we respect our religion and we are not like xenophobic to people who don't practice the same religious practices we have or spirituality and stuff like that?
Well, because this is a mass party, we need everybody. And I think the issue is that there are a lot of people from the church that are still recovering from some hurt, like I was raised in a very conservative fundamentalist church. I think a lot of us know what that could be like. And if you're stratified in that type of judgment, it just kind of, if you don't heal from that and understand dialectically, that's why this party and organizing work has definitely helped me understand the context of it, because I was coming out thinking, just these one size fits all arguments like, oh, this is what religion does to Black people. It makes them, because a lot of these criticisms were even brought up in the book we're reading in Garvey, how religion has always been for our people a sense of passion and force, and it's been used to sort of like allow trauma to just keep going. We just kind of pass it up, pray about it, don't say nothing. And basically you just have to have that revelation and you come into the terms of the historical aspect and you understand that it's not all, you can't paint all of it in those degrees. And to your point, like we need everybody, and there's going to be people who believe, there's going to be people who don't believe. And it's just really about the objective. The objective is for the masses of the people to gain this power so that we have the will to self-determination. So you're going to have to work with people who think differently. And it's not that it's impossible. It's just going to take that discipline of engaging in work and kind of just decolonizing that mind from just these horrible structures we've been taught to allow, like the justifications of judgment and patriarchy and homophobia, transphobia. All of that has to be dealt with critically. And it can't just be like, oh, well, no, that's not what the Bible don't say that. It's like the Bible says a lot of things. It's all about the interpretation. It's all about what are you, like, how are you using it? Are you going to use it for a force of destruction, or are you going to use it to actually edify? And so, yeah, it just takes that deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those who try to claim that they're for the total liberation and unification of Africa, to try to liberate African people, for those who say that and then at the same time turn around and say, well, we shouldn't be practicing these religions and stuff like that. It's kind of backwards to say that, because if you want to really organize Africans, you understand that we're spiritual people. Majority of us are in some type of spiritual, have some type of spiritual belief for the most part. We do have atheists. I don't want to make it seem like we're some monolithic race that, we're all, every single person is.
Right, but it's not the dominant reflection.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the dominant reflection of Africans. It's like, whether it's, Abrahamic religion, whether it's a traditional African spirituality system, we all believe, for the most part, believe in something. So if you're really concerned about organizing Africans, you're going to understand that you're going to have to work with people from different walks of faith, different beliefs. That just reminds me of, like, I know sometimes, like, in the past, when I first started reading, I started like reading about like the transatlantic slave trade, and how Western Europeans and Western society in general, distorted certain principles of the Bible to justify the slave trade. And I was like, oh yeah, Christianity is bad. So I was like trying to tell my mom, like, Mom, look, you need to stop being crazy. And my mom was she was like, what? You crazy? Like, she was sitting there looking like, you out your mind? What?
Right, exactly.
There's no way. And that's just a small example. Like, Kwame Ture even brings up this example multiple times, trying to organize and mobilize Africans in the southern part of the United Snakes. Understanding that it's a majority of them are Christians, and he knew that, you can't go to them and tell them, put that Bible down. You can't be, they ain't gonna listen to that.
It's
how you gonna organize
tactically them? It's not smart. Like, you gotta really
exactly.
Exactly.
We gotta meet people where we are. We have to be scientific and materialist with these things. We can't just be abstract with these things we say and just say, oh yeah, well, I could just go walk up to somebody, tell them, look at this book and look at this book, and you shouldn't be practicing Christianity because they're not going to hear you. They're not going to want to organize. You know what I mean? I understand, when people join organizations, a lot of times this is political education and a lot of things, but faith is one of them. You can't politicize people out of their faith, to be honest. Yeah, like, they believe that a lot of times they turn. So, some people, they do convert to others. I don't want to make it seem like people don't convert to religions and stuff, but I think the main emphasis that we're trying to place is when you're trying to create a political institution or just any institution for power or political power, you need to understand that you're going to have people in different religions, different phenotypes,
right.
You're just not going to have everyone be heterosexual. You're not going to have everyone, you know what I mean? It's like you have to work with all these things. So you can't say you fought liberation for all Black people and then start putting limitations. But, everyone except, those Muslims, everybody except those Christians, everybody except those gays, because they're the ones that yeah. So let me not get on a tangent. I'll let Winfred go. My bad.
Yeah, I think, like, when we try to say, oh, you're being brainwashed by believing in this religion or faith, like, we can forget that, at least for a good chunk of people, religion and, like, churches and faiths provide material benefits. So whether it's like food banks or community shelters, or like just like having other people to talk to every week.
Right.
Religion or just any faith has that sort of like community-based, at least ideally for a lot of people, it has that community-based mindset that like tangibly helps people. So unless we're coming with something that offers the same sense of support and like material benefits, then it's kind of just like a bee buzzing in your ear to say, oh, you're being brainwashed. When you're seeing all these like benefits that come from it.
Exactly. And obviously too, you know, there's obviously people, you know, who are imams or pastors who, you know, once again, you could distort anything for your own personal means, but, you know, they may be, you know, flocking or exploiting people and stuff like that and not really helping in that manner. But then you have the ones who are doing that, you know, some who, you know, they're doing the work and really trying to help the masses and help the people who are disenfranchised and poor in their own communities at the same time. So, which you kind of just took the next question out of my mouth, man, Winfred, but that's a great segue in regards to, like, you know, what other ways can, you know, these religious or spiritual institutions be used in the struggle for liberation? No, I know Winfred kind of said a lot of them, but I don't know if Jesse, you have any other,
right.
any other ways?
I mean, while Winfred was talking, I was thinking of ways the church and any religious institution can develop political education as well. Because what we also know is that there's still a lot of religions that use their religion for hate and separation and dismissal. And we got to fight against that as well, because we need everybody. And so, I mean, I think a lot of people pledge to this traditional way of looking at the Bible, you know, like we're in the last days. We're in the last days. How many times have you heard that? You know, like, like everything's rampant. Jesus is definitely about to come back now, right? Like, no, we got work to do. And so I think many churches can develop and understand and study people like Nat Turner and just many other revolutionaries that have used religion for the benefit of the masses. It's just about understanding the collective, because I think, again, there's a lot of separation. There's a lot of interpretation that's just always set to make people feel less than for not prescribing to a certain, you know, binary or a certain, about whatever it is that people set aside, and it just confuses people. And what happens is they become, that you stay in that so long, it's kind of even hard to talk to people. Generally, it's like, you know, it's just like the revolutionaries become, it just becomes to a point where it blocks out like the actual material results. It's kind of like the old age. I was there. Like, I used to be involved in that, but now I got Jesus on my side. It's like, I don't got to fight no more. It's like, we got to have that understanding of why we're fighting. We got to have that passion and connecting it to just this reality. And I think what happens is people kind of get numbed with certain beliefs and they feel that's all they need, and not understanding that we could actually work with all of what we have. We don't have to just, you know, be in our own little thing. We got to understand the collective.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of what Winfred was saying is, like, you know, they could shelter the homeless. They could be used for food drives and things of that nature. You know, place of obviously, you know, people go there to you know, to praise and worship and things of that nature. But I think you'd be using those other ways. You know, the food, clothes drives and things like that, things of that matter. But even understanding, like you stated earlier, Jesse, like some of these historical figures, how they use it. You know, kind of even use different characters in the Bible who were, you know, or whatever faith, you know, using those various characters of people in the Bible or in the Quran or whatever as examples of revolutionaries and how they could actually, you know, overthrow the system and help with the liberation. I think a lot of the times too, you know, you have those individuals, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, who solely just want to exploit and just want to get money, and, you know, that's what they're in it for, you know, just want to sell things. But you have other ones who are genuine and honest, who actually are concerned about overthrowing systems. And you know, it may not be publicized, but I you know, they are out there. I mean, they're out there, I'm sure. Yeah. So I think it has to be, and I think even to the sense of, you know, those, I guess, pastors or quote unquote pastors who are trying to exploit people and stuff like that, or use religion as a way for material gains in their life. You know, I think those, a lot of the times, they are being funded by the state and, you know, different things like that. So, you know, and framing things in a liberal sense, and, oh, don't talk about that capitalism stuff. Don't talk about that imperialism.
No, because prosperity preachers, like, their whole thing is to get wealth, and that, you know, God destined us to be rich. And so it's a lot of personal responsibility, kind of like you need to invest. You know, the only way to get a harvest is to sow a seed. And it's like, it doesn't. So it's a lot of that going on. And unfortunately, people don't connect that to just the historical reality. And it confuses so many. And I just wish that, I understand that the reason why that is happening is because there's no political education, you know, and a lot of us we go to the first thing that we hear, and it's just not, and especially if you're raised to challenge things and then you're shut down for challenging things and you feel like you can't challenge things. But you got to do that. We have to be comfortable with struggling with one another. That's something that's not always comfortable. You know, sometimes people just like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. It's like, not talk about it. It's not gonna, it's not gonna vanish. Like we gotta struggle through it, and the more we do that, we see we can actually get real results that way.
Yeah, but I think principles struggle in that way. You don't want to get into reactionary stuff.
Absolutely.
My bad, Winfred. I think I was.
It's all good. I think like at least for me, the question it hasn't really been like, should we not have religion anymore? Or like, how can we separate ourselves from like different religions? I think it's been more so, how can we separate ourselves from, I guess, of imperialistic and people and forces and organizations that try to dictate what the religion is. So like, you can have any faith, and like, the book is already written. But like not necessarily everybody actually reads the books. So the narrative is controlled by authority figures. So the question for me is like, who are the authority figures and how are they set in those places? And are they being influenced by imperialistic forces? And if so, how can we either replace them or remove those imperialistic forces, as opposed to, is this religion better for us or not?
Right.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, once again, that we see every episode, organizing. I think most of us, I know most of us aren't in an organization. So I think with that ideological training of understanding the line of the party that you may be in, like for one, on the A-APRP, the more, I know for me personally, and I would imagine everyone else on this call, like, the longer we've been here and getting that ideological training, the further we understand and believe these objectives, and try to attain them and do everything we can, to try to do so. So I think if people join revolutionary organizations, I think, based off your religion, you're probably going to combine both. I think just instinctually. It's like you wouldn't be okay with imperialism and capitalism and patriarchy and all those other things. So you would try to advance humanity just based off of your belief.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any things else that you guys want to add or comment on in regards to this topic, or last words?
Well, I think we said, there's so much more can be said, because talking about the confusion aspect, it's like, I think, speaking again to the point of sensitivity, a lot of people are coming from just awakening to some realization. Maybe they remembered being told something as a child, or being judged for being who they are, and then there's just this overall like regurgitation against it, like, oh, this can't, because that type of rebellion comes from an awakening, when you realize, oh, I was taught this was wrong. But it's all about kind of just understanding those contradictions. So I guess want to highlight that. It's just understand that those things can merge together. They don't have to be, separated. And, if you choose to use religion, hopefully use your religion for revolutionary purposes and not for oppression, because that's not going to help. That's a contradiction in itself. You're talking about love and humanity. You can't say, well, not for people like that, or not for people like, you have to include everyone. So, it would just be about understanding, reading the resources we're going to put in the description of people that have actually done the work, connecting it to this, because it's not like it's not been done before, but capitalism has taken over religion too. Like, we speak of the prosperity gospel and other forms of, even people with traditional African religions monopolizing off of that, getting people to just tune into whatever just for profit. So anything can be used and wielded for bad purposes. Is kind of what we're saying. It's not that you can't use it. It's just about understanding what best way to use it to service the masses.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that part you said in regards to that even African spirituality can be used to oppress. Like anyone could pick it up and say, well, I'm gonna use this to exploit people. I'm gonna use this. I mean, you can do that with almost anything. Anything could be a weapon. That's something. In regards to like culture or whatever. That's something Dr. Amos and Wilson has stated before. It's like culture can be used, and it's being used as a weapon. We see that with music. Where hip hop first started to what it is now. Like when it first started, they were talking about the downtrodden and Africans in these inner city communities. And neighborhoods. And now look where it's at.
Right now,
and it isn't something that is not obviously, as everyone knows and everyone should know, is that this isn't something that's controlled by predominantly like working or oppressed African people or colonized people in the general. This is dominated by the ruling class. I mean, this space is dominated by the Western European ruling class. So that's really what it is. And even if it wasn't European, whatever, it's just dominated by the ruling class in general.
Right.
That's pretty much the emphasis I'm trying to get to. So that's just an example how things can get shifted from the original meaning to what it essentially is to today. So just wanted to throw that out there. So Winfred, you have anything else to add or
I guess at least for me, when how do you say? So at least when I hear people saying that the masses of African peoples are either like brainwashed or don't know what they're doing or idiots, I always put that into question of like, why are people doing what they're doing? Because like at least on an individual level, I think that people do things to, I guess, make sure that they survive or for material reasons. So I think it's important to question, like, why are people doing what they're doing? And like, what material reasons are people doing them for? I think when we go into the, like, everybody's brainwashed and I'm the only person who knows what the thing is,
right,
it can kind of
kind
of get corrupted.
Exactly. Yeah. People are not being material in their analysis. You're not digging into the conditions that people are in. You're just like, well, I'm the only one woke out here, so I'm gonna go ahead.
Reactionary as opposed to revolutionary. It's definitely different.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm gonna free everyone by myself. It's all on me. Like, come on, man. Y'all sound crazy out here, bro. Like, there's no, and it's kind of like as Jamu said our last episode. It's like, man, if you can do it on your own,
right? Then what are you just doing?
What do you just do it, please?
Why not?
Listen, if you could eliminate all these, privatized corporations and these multinational corporations and all these NGOs, like, please, like, our people are dying out here. We getting shot in the streets,
right,
every day. So please, if you can stop it, do it tomorrow. I'll beg you, please. And we want to work with you too. Let me know, because if you can do it, please, like, reach out to me, reach out to the party, whatever. Like, listen, we want to work with you if you have that power or capability. We know you don't, but we're just gonna put it out there anyway. But we thank you guys for joining on this episode of the Pantsula Podcast. Before we end, like we said it in every episode, we have our comrade Jamilah who got in an accident earlier this year. She's actually doing better. She's I think she's in therapy, physical therapy. She's pretty much on her way out the hospital any day now. But understanding this capitalist system, it exploits you in various means and ways, and you accumulate medical bills because in the snakes we don't have universal health care. So if you guys can, I'll have the link in the description where you guys could donate and help her out with those expenses. But other than that, we'd like to thank you guys for joining in for another edition of the Pantsula Podcast, and hopefully we'll see you guys again next week. For whatever, y'all.
For whatever.